moderating, not hosting, but moderating this panel today on new formats in the performing arts. And that's a topic that is very close to my heart, not only because, I manage the estate of one performer who has done a lot in that space in the last century, but also because I'm very much into technology, and I really love to see how technology is driving that space and how we, come to new experiences for new audiences. This is a panel with a fantastic group of speakers. And I want to introduce to you, first off, Elise Caluwaerts and Jasna Rokegem from Opera on Brainwaves, a really cool project that merges fashion tech, opera, and lots of interesting sensors for bodies. So welcome, Elise and Jasna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Elise is a opera singer by training, but she has a lot of experience in interactive performances with technologists, but also in I think lead. So you have a CD with a pianist that I found very interesting.
Thank you.
Jasna is a fashion designer and technologist. And so it will be very interesting to learn more about your project. I want to also welcome Pierluigi Christophe Orunesu. He is he's the founder of icologram, which is a really, really cool technology company that is creating holograms and virtual reality experiences of performances. So I hope we're talking to the real Pierluigi right now. Welcome.
Yes, it's myself. It's not my icologram.
Wonderful. Then I want to welcome Jeffrey Schnapp. He is the co-founder and director of the Meta Lab at Harvard, but also director of the Bergman and Klein Center for the Internet and Society, and also a chief, chief visionary officer and co-founder of the Piaggio Fast Forward, which is a really, really cool design space, innovation hub in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And if that isn't enough, he's also professor of literature at Harvard University and teaches at the design school there. So welcome, Jeffrey.
Thanks a lot. It's lovely to join this group.
And I want to get started with the short project or activities introductions and go back to Elise and Jasna. Talk a little bit about their opera on brainwaves. It's such a cool project. I know you brought a little video that I'm actually going to show now. But before we dive into the video, can you maybe say one or two sentences about how you two met and why you started this collaboration? Because that's, I think, is always good to know.
Shall I take this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm an opera singer and I do regular productions and concerts, and I love that. But I'm also very interested in technology and the direction the world is going to. I heard about Jasna's work and I was immediately triggered because as an opera singer, what we actually do is sell, if you want, huge emotions to the audience. And I've always found it really interesting to feel that very strange, enormous emotion that is in the music, but then the contrast with performing and the state of mind of a performer, which is very conscious, highly conscious. So you have both things. And I asked to meet Jasna because I thought it could be incredibly interesting to go and explore this contradiction, if you want, in the performing arts with fashion technology. We met, I saw her work, I was so impressed, and we decided to make an opera where the audience will be able to see the real and true states of minds and emotions of the performer.
Wow, that's so cool.
I hope so.
Yeah, and what is also nice that and that is something very special in the fashion industry, but we actually did a test case. So I built a couple of years ago the Fashion on Brainwaves collection, which is the first collection in the world that is visualizing your brainwaves in real time in garments that change color or form. And in San Francisco, in the Legion of Honor Museum, Elise was wearing one of the dresses while she was performing in between the paintings of Rubens. And what I saw there was like, I couldn't say anything anymore, because I saw Elise going through a range of emotions in 20 minutes, and I've never seen something like that before. It was very special. And that's how we decided to make it an international project.
That's so cool. Maybe this is a good moment for me to share actually your short video that you sent me, so that our audience can also get a sense of how this is going to look like and what the technology is. So bear with me while I try to get this going. Can you see the screen share?
Yeah.
Yes.
Make this big.
Together we are creating Opera on Brainwaves. This will be a unique augmented opera experience that will take you on a journey of exploration into the self and the other, into emotions and technology. We are building a statement dress which will visualize Elise's emotions and will add a new dimension to the opera experience. This opera experience might be the first tool to actually train your brain to become more empathetic and to develop a new sensor to receive and transfer emotions.
That's so cool. I hope everyone could see and hear that. What I find very interesting in particular is, wait, I need to stop my YouTube in the background. It keeps going, it keeps going. What I find so interesting about this is that you are using an EEG technology to read brainwaves, which is something that goes back to a research project that Herbert von Karajan did in the 60s. So when I saw about your project, I thought immediately, oh, how cool is that? And what Elise said is so interesting, that, you know, as a performer, you have this split brain. Could you talk a little bit about this this situation, that, you know, the emotion in the music that you want to convey is maybe a little bit different from the emotion that the performer has in that particular moment? How do you deal with that? What does that mean for you as a performer? How do you do that as a technologist? I found that really fascinating.
Right. So as a performer, you study the material that you're going to perform. So there's this whole process of preparation where you go through a very rational process, right? Like, what's the music? What's it sound like? How do you sing it? How do you tackle technical difficulties and all those things? That's like weeks and weeks in advance. You know what the music is about. You know the emotion that you want to give to an audience and to show them and make them feel, right? And then what happens with all this preparation when you're going to perform is that you kind of, it's like you have this ball of things you prepared, and then you kind of let it go and you try to be as much as you can in the moment. And the way it feels for me is that you're always going back and forth, you know, because there are passages in the music where you have to be careful, where it's difficult, where it's this and that. And then there are things that you've done 100 times and that you can just let go and trust your body. And they will give different states of minds. And what happens also is that there's an interaction with the audience, because performing is by definition a very empathetic experience, right? That's what we love, right? The performer gives out an emotion and everybody feels involved because that's what happens to humans and it's beautiful. And so that also kind of influences the way things feel and the way your brain kind of reacts to the situation. So that's one thing. And then there's stress. Because stress is real, and that's like a very revealing and fascinating thing for me is that the first thing you learn as a classical singer is hide the stress.
Yeah.
We never show our stress to the audience, but I promise you that everyone who walks on stage towards the orchestra and sees the people in the hall, their heart goes like 200 an hour. That's just what happens, and it's also wonderful because it's this huge boost of excitement and adrenaline and oh my god, right? So there's that, and then there are also the things that we don't control and that can happen in the moment and that do happen during performances, like you step on your dress, you slip, you trip, and those things. And the amazing thing is that the dress that we're building is actually going to show all of that.
Wow, that's cool. That's really amazing.
It's a gigantic experiment, and it's really exciting to do that. And for example, we did this test case in San Francisco in the Legion of Honor when I was performing with Jasna's first design, and there was so the organization wasn't as tight and organized as what would have made us happy. So at a certain point I really got annoyed, and then the whole dress turned red, because you try to hide your anger, and you're like, what is this, and I need to perform and this is not working and it doesn't work for me. And then you go to the organizer and you say, well, please could you work with the lights, could we please hurry it up? And that whole dress was red. So I don't know, we've it's been
you cannot lie. You cannot lie with the dress.
No, that's
you can't lie.
And you can lie, but what's also interesting about that, and I think that also shows a larger perspective to humanity, is that the first step is to reconnect with yourself and be in touch with your own feelings. All these collection pieces, they offer you real-time neurofeedback. So you can directly interact with yourself. And on a second level, as in this case, for example, you also can communicate with the people around you. So at that precise moment, I knew, okay, Elise is not in a good place and I've got her back, I'm the counterpart. So I should stay calm in this moment and try to be there for her. And I think this touches upon the main topic, which is emotional intelligence. And we all know that in the future, that's the most important skill that we have to develop further as a human being. And opera on brainwaves will be the first experience in opera that not only transfers emotions through sound, but also visually. Am I just like sitting down in the audience and enjoying the performance? You are training your brain to become more emotional intelligent. And I think that's even more magic about this whole performance, is that you are training yourself by just relaxing and enjoying art.
Wow. Well, this is so fascinating. And there are so many questions in my head right now, and we could dive deep with Jeffrey. I know who's in the front of his chair already, because he has written a manifesto recently with a group of people addressing many of these issues. But before we go to that and dive deep on these issues, I want to bring in Pierluigi first, because I think in many ways, his project is complementary to what you described, where, I'll give a short description of what I believe this is about, where you have the technology to actually fix a performance of an artist in a way that can then be recreated in 3 dimensions as a hologram and in all of its sort of performative glory. And I think this is a really fascinating approach as well. And Pierluigi, I want to invite you on stage now, on our virtual stage, to tell us a little bit about when you had the idea to ecologram, and where it is right now, what you're doing at the moment, and maybe share some impressions as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Matthias. Yes, icologram is a Swiss initiative that I created in 2018, so it's pre-pandemic, and it is clearly designed to transmit and guarantee a holographic legacy, faithful to the artist, to the talent that we record. It's about extended reality, but more about augmented reality. But what is important, in contrast to the posthumous hologram that usually we see, because I am sure that you know that Maria Callas is actually in tour. There is Tupac, there is Amy Winehouse. In contrast to these posthumous holograms that we know, which are reconstructed with the help of archive images, my initiative, the icologram initiative, is to take and to ask the artist during his lifetime to be involved in creating his own icologram legacy. And this is the fundaments of what we do, because we create a perfect digital alter ego with the artist. So the artist controls from A to Z what he wants to what he wants to leave as a hologram. And also, what is important, the term hologram is often used as a misnomer. It seemed to me more appropriate to use a neologism to invent, to create a new brand, combining the intimate and the digital. So icologram is the contraction between the icon and the hologram. It is the concept that we want to defend and we are bringing. And the first, and that was amazing. The first icologram we have recorded, it was in 2019, in November 19, here in Switzerland, in La Chaux-de-Fonds. And it is the artist, the very famous pianist, Philippe Entremont, which now he is 86 years old. He became the first living artist to create his icologram during his lifetime. So now I am the owner of his perfect digital human. We can reproduce him on stage. I can show you the example in order to exactly.
So while you put that up, so it's like a technology that allows me as an artist to get a perfect copy of what I want to be, I guess, and then I can create performances in this virtual space.
Yes, what we started with the concept using a 2D capture in 2018, and of course the future is volumetric. The volumetric icologram capture is the technique that will digitize human using a three-dimensional space in real time. And we are using an array of cameras set around the target, and the capture is totally fluid and perfect. This makes it's very interesting. The volumetric video is very interesting. That it can interact, and you can see the result from different angles.
Right.
You decide where you want to go and what do you want to see, and this is very important. The difference between a 360-degree video and the volumetric video is the depth provided with the volume. In a 360-degree video, users can only view the video from a single angle. With the volumetric video, the end user can play and control how far in or out he wants to experience the icologram vision.
So that's a little bit like in a video game where I can actually, as the player, I can move around and I can look at the room from whatever perspective I am at that moment.
Yes.
Versus a situation where I look out into the room, and is this technology something that you see more in line with, say, the tradition of recordings, the tradition of filmmaking, or is this a technology that you see more as a technology coming out of sort of the idea of games, the idea of virtual reality? Where do you fall?
This is a good question. I think that volumetric video market is going to grow a lot, and the demand is going to explode because we will have more and more displays that will allow to explore and to display such content. It will have an impact on end user, and it will have an impact also on stage. This is a fact. Let me just show you the first icologram we have recorded in order to give you an idea. So this is the Philippe Entremont icologram.
We don't see it.
I don't see it?
No.
Okay, just a moment. Let me come here. Okay, now you should. Is it better?
Yeah.
Do you see?
Go full screen. Go full screen on the video.
Okay.
So this is a video recording of the icologram.
This is an icologram on stage. Absolutely. I am showing you the result on stage.
And the guy that we saw in the picture is just someone from the crew.
Yeah, exactly. It's an operator, just to show you that it's just to show you the comparison. What is important and what I am very proud is that it was very important to convince Philippe Entremont to come to record this icologram using a grand piano. And as you can see, black is the enemy number one of holography. But we fight, and we had a fantastic result using lights. And everyone was telling me, Pierluigi, you are going to waste your time. You will not be able to record an hologram with a black piano. But you can see that we did it. And this is we are very proud of that, because it's not easy to have this result. You can see that I have managed on the contract of Philippe to wear a white jacket. You know, he had already the white hair, so this was already.
Okay.
And let me show you now the volumetric. Do you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me show. These are all icologram. They are not avatar. Huh? This is me.
Wow. So now you're showing a rendering of those in a virtual reality space.
Yes,
right?
Exactly, in immersive. Okay. But I can take exactly.
So and you can decide from which angle you watch this.
Exactly.
Wow, that's cool. Now,
and the pyramid logo belongs to the Egyptian, because we belongs to the eternity with the icologram. We fix your legacy for the eternity. Let me just cut the.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Now we're back. Thank you very much, Pierluigi. This is very interesting, especially because I remember when you first showed me the technology. Now there is a new iteration, which is very exciting. Now, I believe both of these projects are really doing something in the here and now that many people out there believe is the future. And I want to talk a little bit about the difficulties that you see, both in terms of what it is that you do. You already said that a little bit, but also in terms of when you think about what you do right now, how is that going to, does it become a normal thing? Do you think that this kind of collaboration you're doing with Opera on Brainwaves will be the normal way of going to the opera in the future? Or Pierluigi, will this be the normal way to record a piece that you have studied as a pianist or as a musician? and how long do you think it's going to take, and what is in the way of that? And I would like to bring in Jeffrey on this point, because Jeffrey has been working, as I said earlier, on a manifesto around the future stage, which brings in a lot of these questions around, what it is that performers and audiences do, where performances are, why we need performances, and educate people around performing arts. Jeffrey, give us a little bit of the background story of this manifesto. How did it come about, and why did you do it? Where is it going?
Yeah, and thanks for this opportunity. It's actually the first public conversation I've participated in since a group of about, I think, a total of almost 35, 40 professionals from different areas of performing arts, everybody from people in managerial and policy-making functions, running enormous organizations, to artists performing, much like Elise and Jasna's collaboration in various new and emergent and experimental modes. And the idea was, and architects, I should say, architects and technologists and designers and historians like myself. And really, the project, which is called Future Stage, was really at the instigation of a group of collaborators of mine who are working on the future of opera, as it would happen. The question we wanted to ask ourselves is, in a sense, the question that Matthias just posed, which is, what are the obstacles at every level of the production chain, the workflow in the performing arts, that stand in the way of these potentially breakthrough forms of experimentation, new modes of experience, new modes of interaction, new audiences for that matter. And of course, the answer to that question is a complex one. It isn't a simple one, but one of the places we started was the physical structure of performance sites. We're interested in, and one of the pushes behind the manifesto was really to lay down in a polemical fashion, in a good manifesto-like fashion, to step on some toes, to irritate, hopefully, some people, leveraging the expertise of the community that contributed to this process, and trying to articulate a kind of poetics of performance for the present and the future that would inform decision-making on all of those levels, from the top of management all the way down to the professional roles that are new and emergent roles that will essentially reshape the world of performance. That was the impulse behind it. And I'm going to share my screen just for a second, because I wanted to show just where this work comes from. One of the places this work comes from. Can you see my screen right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at MetaLab, which is the lab that I run at Harvard, part of the Berkman Klein Center, we've been working on a number of projects. This is just one of them that my colleague Lynn Sterry, who is a dancer, has been leading. She's a technologist and a dancer. This choreographic interfaces, but it has a number of different variations, really focused on creating sensorial experiences of data that involve physical interaction. In other words, trying to get away from a model where the kind of on the hardware side, at least, there's this sort of predictable script of interactions, and trying, in a sense, to eliminate those mediating layers, the mouse, the device, and trying to embody data, make data performative, dance with data, create modes of interaction that play with the latencies, for example, of networks, trying to really sort of excavate the space as an expressive space that has opportunities for us. I hope I'm back to, okay. So that was really the spur for a lot of this interest. I'm interested, for example, in the models that come from motorsports and athletics, where camera and other kinds of sensing devices have started to shape spectator experiences, for instance. not only the technologies that are used to increase performance. So it's that kind of dynamic feedback loop that it seems to me is really integral to the emerging world of performance today. And some great examples were given already in this conversation. And that's where the Future Stage Manifesto is going. And if you'll indulge me for a second, I'm just going to go to the manifesto itself. And I'm just going to quickly, I was going to talk a little bit about some other projects I've worked on that involve this kind of mixed, data embodiment hybridity. This is a project with the artist Lynn Hirschman, an experimental series of performances where the musical instruments were actually landscapes in virtual worlds. This is a book project on a serious scholarly book that I wrote on Marshall McLuhan's The Medium is the Massage, which had an album connected to it where the book, the scholarly book, is also an album and a series of live performances. But that's all just a little bit of backdrop to get you to Future Stage, where which is the outcome of this collaborative brainstorming with an extended group of professionals in the field, really focuses on the foundations of performance today and what performance could be today and tomorrow. And at the core of that vision is not only a vision of alternative architectures for this physical spaces of performance, but also the notion of liveness plus, which was the one I was alluding to before, the notion that the analog world is a world that is animated by, surrounded by, by constantly infused by the presence of this expanding halo of data and networks, and that we need to make that kind of interconnected transmedial dimension a dimension of the forms of presence that we provide, even in the most traditional modes of live performance. So Liveness Plus is at the core of the manifesto. It's only one of the aspects of the larger framework that's put forward. We put forward a kind of also a critique or an invitation to reinvent touring as a kind of foundation of the performing arts economy. We talk about particularly the default that has emerged in the pandemic of streaming events as an inadequate and a kind of misreading, a missed opportunity in terms of going in this direction of a kind of Liveness Plus based concept. And then in a very provocative way, lay out a whole template for future professions that will be connected to this Liveness Plus space that requires roles that are fundamentally different, that just do not exist in the current taxonomy of performing arts teams and troupes. So this is all just to give you a kind of hors d'oeuvre, a sort of a graze through a document that we're just beginning to disseminate. We're hoping it will serve as a provocation with policymakers in particular.
There's a lot of background noise. Where is this coming from?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Can you mute yourself?
I'm not doing anything, so I don't know where it's.
Can you mute yourself?
Let's see.
Thanks.
Okay. So we're just beginning to disseminate this document, and what we're hoping is that it will collide with consolidated practices, particularly in the policymaking sector, and encourage a kind of experimentalist ethos that begins to really reflect on these, the ability for sensing, telepresent devices, all kinds of dimensions to be not just supports for performance, but rather integrated in the very fabric of how we think performance and embodiment today. And that's really, if I could sum it up, probably at the core of what this whole venture aspires to do.
I want to go back to this idea of the space that needs to be really highly configurable, and ask Jasna the question, when you come in with your tech that is needed for a performance of opera on Brainwaves, how do you do that really physically? are theaters equipped for this, or do you wish you had a different kind of performing venue?
Thank you, Jeffrey. It was nice. He really also used the words fashion and fashionable and fabric, but on an abstract way, of course. But it feels very connected. You know, I'm a very free soul, so I like to be free as well in terms of the performances. And I think which is really cool about this co-creation with Elise is that it goes beyond the theaters. Actually, our launch is going to be in space, so it really goes beyond anything you've ever imagined, and you've got to work with what you get there, and you have to be prepared for it. And of course, it's technology, so there can go something wrong any single second, but that also makes it extra exciting. And I think, yeah, from the technology part, like for Opera and Brainwaves, there's going to be a lot of technology involved. And I think the most difficult thing is you have to make it wearable. Elise needs to own it, you know, she needs to wear it. And I think that's the most complex thing of all of it. It doesn't matter in which location it is. So I think that answers a little bit your question. But it can go beyond that, because if you think about the Internet of Things, we could actually connect Elise's brain to anything we want. We could connect it to props on stage, video mapping, even maybe music. It's endless, the possibilities are endless. And I think that Opera and Brainwaves is just the beginning, and the dress is the first Lego stone of all these different extra stones that you can build and then connect with each other on different locations.
But I think I want to stay on that point a little bit. I mean, of course, you all are super excited by what you do. You put a lot of energy behind what you do. You are actually doing things that are, transhuman already. Like, incredible what you guys are doing. And I'm wondering about, do we really think that others are also going to put that much effort into this? And can the stuff that we are trying out right now in these projects, can it really become like the norm, or is there this force in our society that always drags us down to the carpet, right, to the floor again, which says like, no, a performance is, you have a stage, you have performers, you have audience, you are in a building, and maybe we do a live broadcast on the internet or television, but that is the norm. Forget about anything else. Like, that makes me furious, that thought. I'm just doing that for the sake of the discussion. But isn't that a little bit the problem?
Forget the norm, Let's forget about the norm. Also, everybody has been talking about this new normal. There is no normal. I think the less normal you are, the better. The more you evolve, the more you are pioneering, and people follow, It's like, it's making a statement. It's showing, hey, this is where the future can head towards. It's a possible scenario of the future. And you know what? It's already here, You're part of this.
Right. Yeah, that's
of
right.
course.
And that makes people think. That's inspiring, and that starts the impact process, So let's cut the new normal.
I think
right. Jeffrey?
I think
Oh no, I was just going to add, I totally agree with Jasna's response, but I would also add that good design eliminates those complexities. Like, I mean, as you know, Matthias, because you visited my robotics startup, we try to build robots that an 85-year-old can operate without ever looking at a user manual. So really good tech is tech that becomes natural very quickly. And so I think, when you're involved in an experimental process early on, of course, there's lots of obstacles. There's lots of, mediation, But as you move and projects mature and technologies mature, I think the ability for them to weave themselves into everyday experience, even become intuitive extensions of people's consciousness, of their habits, their practices, we can get there. And so I think it's a process, it's a process where we're maybe experimenters, so we're maybe out at a sort of frontier position, but the new normal is once you model something that looks plausibly normal, it can become normal really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It can actually become old very quickly as well.
Exactly.
Pierluigi, you also wanted to say something on that point.
Yes, I think, Matthias, we have a good example. You are a good example. Karajan also made visionary use of the latest media, anticipating recording methods with the latest possibility available during his lifetime. He knew that the future would allow the new supports, new devices to deploy art and music in new manners. And among the trends, the digital content displayed today on stage, on screens, or directly on mobile, because we also have our web app. I cannot show you the web app, but we just developed our web app. This is gaining ground. In this field, I believe augmented reality appears to be very attractive. There is a fight between, not a fight, but in the world of extended reality, we have virtual and augmented reality. And we have to find the bon équilibre. While virtual reality requires heavy resources, standalone headsets, and sometimes complex hardware management, I believe augmented reality appears simpler because it can be deployed on simple smartphone or tablets or on stage as the icologram that I can diffuse. So this is not the future, is the present. And we are in the metaverse. You can call it as you want. You can call it metaverse, virtual reality, virtual worlds, matrix, what you want, but we are in.
Yeah, that's right. And I recently had a conversation with someone about a certain project that we're doing, and we were thinking about doing it sort of a new way, but still in the old style of thinking. And then that person said, like, forget about that, just go straight to where the action is, like put out NFTs, put your rights on the blockchain, and just forget about all of the legacy stuff. And that was so refreshing. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. But I don't know how we're doing in terms of time. I think we're slightly over, but then again, we also started a little bit late. And we do have a small but phenomenal audience here. And so I want to give the audience also a chance to ask questions. If you have questions you want to address to any of the panelists, then this is your chance. Put it in the Q&A, and Thierry is going to filter through the lots of questions we'll get. But while you think about questions and ask them in the chat, I wanted to go back to something that Elise said really in the very beginning, and that is that as a performer, you sort of have a split brain three ways. It's towards the music, it's towards yourself, and it's towards your audience. And what Jeffrey wrote in the manifesto I found very beautiful was that performance is a basic need, is a human right. And if that is the case, then everything we do becomes a little bit of a performance. Not everything, but performance spaces are everywhere, performances are everywhere. And I wonder if, Elise, if you could talk a little bit about how a project like this has changed your way of thinking about what you do as a singer, as a performer, and maybe let us hear your thoughts on that.
Right. Thanks for the question, because I think it's a brilliant, wonderful, beautiful question, because this project has actually changed the way I feel and think about performing. And I consciously say feel as well, because one of the things that happens while doing this project is that, of course, with the visualization of real emotions and states of minds, you get something that we call an augmented empathetic experience, which means the audience feels incredibly involved because they can see what's going on with you. You don't even have to show it. You know, they can see it, they get excited, they feel, and that's one of the things that if you say performing is a human right, I couldn't agree more, because what performing does is create empathy. That's what narratives do to us. And so the way that this project kind of changed my thinking and feeling about performing is, first of all, I've been thinking about it day and night. What is performing? Why does it work? What does it actually do to people? What do I want it to do to people? And I was kind of forced also together with Jasna to define what it does. So that was a great gift for me. And I think the answer is connection and empathy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the essence of any reality, virtual reality. That's the reason why we do things, because we want to connect and we want to feel empathy, because it makes us feel human. And I think that's like a circle, because then you get again to what Jeffrey said about it being a human right. It's really the essence of being human. And what we do with Opera and Brainwaves is show it, enlarge it, so people can have an augmented experience. And it may be, so I got some reactions from the opera world saying, oh, technology.
Yeah.
Well,
I bet you got
so
those.
cold, right? So cold. But what it actually does is warm. It's actually giving you access to more emotions, deeper emotions, more connection.
Yeah.
So thanks for the question, because
Thank you very much. And I kind of think that Pierluigi with his technology is working on making that even immortal. This this warmth, this emotion acceleration in a way.
Yeah, this is the scope. It's to create a fantastic catalog created hand in hand with the artist. The artist decide what he wants to leave for the posterity, and we keep the emotion. This is very important. The word emotion has been so many times pronounced. I think it's the key is there is to find the link with augmented and emotion, and this is what we are what we want to do. And as I told you, it's pre-pandemic, so the pandemic gave a new natural sense of what we are doing.
Yeah, now a lot of people could, go through this catalyst in a way. Folks, it's not enough time, but I know that that is often been said at the end of panel discussions. It's especially true for this one. What I think what we could do in this round was kickstart a little bit a conversation between very different projects and minds and people in different continents. But I do hope that this continues after our session today, and that that maybe in a year from now at Art Tech Foundation, wherever it's going to take place, then we'll be able to come back and tell us about the next iteration of what's going on, the manifesto, the opera, and the performers in the virtual reality metaverse, whatever you call it.
Or maybe even perform if it's
Or maybe
actually
even
live,
perform.
you know?
Actually, we kind of did perform today, so. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank the organizers. I want to thank the audience. I don't believe we got a question, did we, Thierry?
We received the question.
Oh, okay. Read it.
Okay, read it.
Sorry.
So it said, I really believe in the combination of science, arts, and technology. However, given the current climate, concerns related to CO2 emission from this technology, how do you see the future in this space?
Yeah. This is a question that I know Jeffrey has an answer to, because it's part of the manifesto. So I want, if you agree, I'm going to let speak Jeffrey first on this question. How do we deal with the CO2 emissions and the tech, AI and blockchain and so on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think the point that Elise made about connection, which the ways in which technology can enhance and expand the empathic sort of nature of the connection between a live performer and an embodied audience, I think extends to the broader set of connectivity that the manifesto is very much about, which is how do we use technologies to even expand that circle beyond live presence to forms of presence that are differing degrees of telepresence. And I think that expanded notion of technologies as connective tissues is important to answering this question about the CO2 footprint of the performing arts, which is, touring. And touring is right at the center of the polemic that we put forth. And we try to make an argument that it's not about touring or no touring. It's about beginning to think about touring in relation to the question of the CO2 footprint of touring and thinking about new models of touring. Touring does not have to mean that every traditional, well-subventioned, publicly supported art form travels as like a giant circus troupe from place to place, from capital to capital. There are a lot of formulae that allow for much more agile, light forms of packaged shows where maybe some live performers are part of that mix, but not, in other words, we really need to start imagining a present and future where touring is, in a sense, sharpened in its the basic way in which we strategize around it, we plan it, we implement it, and where we think about leveraging the power of networks to address precisely some of those issues. So I think in the manifesto it's called the Turing test for obvious reasons. But I do think we need to subject the Turing model to new sets of tests that bring to the fore the question of the environmental impact of touring as a practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can combine everything here. So imagine that we take opera and brainwaves as a practical example on what Jeffrey just said and apply his knowledge. It would be like opera and brainwaves should explore new ways of touring around the world, implementing Pierluigi's technology where Elise does not always have to be there physically present, but also can perform as a hologram on stage, for example.
An icologram.
An icologram, of course.
Thank you for calling me an icon.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah. That's true. That's a concept. But I agree totally with Jasna.
Yeah, I do think that the classical music touring industry, at least in Europe, is already having a huge mind shift. I know of so many ensembles and conductors who just travel by train, no matter how long it takes. So they do like 12-hour train trips and stuff, and they are trailblazers, but it is where we're going. I also, for as much as it's possible, try to avoid traveling by airplane. That's the kind of consciousness that's very alive right now, and I think musicians or classical musicians are with the people who really hope to create a better, future for all those young people who also want a nice planet Earth to live on. So, yeah, so it's already happening.
Yeah. I think that was a very nice final word for this discussion. And thank you again. I had a lot of fun doing this, even though I was nervous about the kids coming in and what else. But luckily, that did not show too much because I don't have a beautiful EEG headset. But next time I might. So thank you again to everyone. Jeffrey, you have a great rest of the day, and for everyone else, have a wonderful evening, and bye-bye to Istanbul.
Thank you.
Bye-bye Bruxelles, bye-bye Fribourg, bye-bye Salzburg.
Goodbye.
Thanks so much.
New York, or I don't know, where are you exactly?
I'm in Boston.
Oh, Boston, okay, bye-bye Boston. Okay.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Matthias.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you,
It's a pleasure.
Matthias.
Take good care.
Just
Ciao,
hang up
ciao.
now, or how does
Bye-bye.
this work? Yeah.